Hello everyone, watch this review here with a look at Baraka from Jazwares 4-inch, well 3 3/4 inch, maybe 3.5 inch, I don't know yet. Well, the smaller scale of their Mortal Kombat line. Now, I'm not sure what futures and possibilities the line still holds at this point, considering I found him at a Marshall's, and typically when figures start popping up in overstock retailers, it's kind of the death knell for a series, because that's usually the very last stop, it seems. So, I guess it probably would suck to see Mortal Kombat figures go out of retail, but at the same time, I can't say that I'm surprised, and, it's probably not for the worst that they get some sort of retooling, because this line kind of wasn't all that great. This also marks the first time I've seen Baraka at retail. I guess he came out in like a later wave, but here's a comparison against the 6-inch figure packaging. As you can see, they opted for a very similar design with the Mortal Kombat logo in the background, then a little... I don't know what the hell that shape is supposed to be. I guess it looks kind of like a bell, but... And it's kind of simple packaging, but it works on some levels. The only drawback is instead of actually showing the real figures, they just have illustrations on the back of the card. Meh. But yeah, without any further ado, fight! Yeah, I don't have actual effects. And here we have Baraka out of package, along with the Marvel Universe Iron Patriot and the Farland Prince of Persia Zal, just to give you an idea of scale. Now, personally, I've never really been a Baraka fan, but after seeing this guy in stores, just kind of had to have him. It's a really neat looking design. I think it kind of transfers over well, and I imagine I probably would pick up several more for army building purposes if, they became available. His race is something called, like, Tarkans or something? What the heck is it? So, these guys do kind of look like that. Tarkatans. Close enough. Otherwise, and the first sort of problem is that it looks like his claws popping out of the wrong area. It's more towards, like, the side of his forearm. I guess you can kind of adjust it, but, I'm used to it popping out just like the center / top of it, which it seems to be doing in the image here. Also, if you notice, I guess the mouth is a little funky. This looks like they kind of just inserted it. The mouth opens up a little bit too wide. Here, I don't know, it looks like a more natural looking mouth. Though his head's more coney than in the game, I guess. So, it's definitely a different look, but at the same time, it's not a bad one. And I think I actually like this 3 3/4 inch one a bit more than the 6-inch Scorpion I opened, although, there is a bit more articulation on the 6-inch one. Although, surprisingly, this one seems to pose a little bit better. I don't know. Probably discussion for another time. Generally speaking, head sculpt here is kind of solid looking. The paint they completely botched. Because it looks like it's the same tone as his skin for the teeth there. The eyes look a little bit off, but generally speaking, it just looks halfway decent, which, is kind of a plus for Jazwares. Usually they screw something up. He actually has some amount of muscular, detailing there. Which, again, pretty cool. Now, as with the other ones, the joints are somewhat loose, so it does sort of impede posability. Quick run through of articulation before I forget. You have rotation at the sort of wrists here. Now, I don't know why they gave him open hands, considering the character didn't come with weapons, and I wouldn't really need weapons, considering he has blades popping out of his arm. By the way, that's just really cool. I always kind of wished I had, like, retractable blades that could just pop out. But beyond that, He has a ball and socket at the elbow here, ball jointed shoulder. And it's also kind of interesting where you don't have exposed pins on this, whereas if you go up to the 6-inch ones, a lot of the ones from the 6-inch line have exposed pins at the shoulders, which doesn't make any sense. You have a torso joint here with an OK amount of forward back, full range rotation. Head only rotates, no up and down, which is a sort of downside. Leg, kind of ball jointed, usual sort of range. No sort of cut or anything here at the upper thigh, which is a little disappointing, but at the knee we get a ball and socket again. And then at the ankle, another ball and socket. Of course, no pivot or anything. Which, while disappointing, it's something you probably don't really expect. Now, I actually have those other figures out for two reasons. The first being scale, the second just being price point. Because when I was first seeing these in retail, actually the only retailer I saw them at is Toys R Us, and they were asking, I think it was around $10 or more for them. But at the same time, the Marvel Universe line was something like $8 or $8.50, even a bit less than that, and then the Prince of Persia stuff premiered at retailers for $8. For $2 more for this stuff, I don't really understand why they would sort of go that route, considering that the quality isn't better in any regard compared to these other two. I mean, he has basically the same amount of articulation as this McFarlane Prince of Persia figure, except not the intricate detail and paintwork. And of course, the Marvel Universe figure, also really solid amount of work on it, but it's a cheaper price point, so I don't know, just what gives. But $6, it's a really reasonable price for what this figure is. Although some of the figures in this line just look so awful that even at like $6, I don't know, even like no matter what price point they would reduce them to, I kind of wouldn't feel compelled to pick them up. I mean, that's sort of a story for another time. Baraka is clearly an exception. He actually looks pretty decent even by his own standards, and just the whole general look. Again, kind of wouldn't mind army building with this guy, because he'd fit pretty well into basically any sort of a fantasy display, any sort of a sci-fi display and all that. But yeah, articulation kind of weak. Sort of weird too, because you have like the unpainted hands here, then you have a painted forearm. But the paint on the forearm looks a little bit different than the paint on the shoulders here, which again, or bicep area, which again is sort of what gives. Then you have like the unpainted shoulder bands up there. I mean, it's just a lot of different color for this figure, and I don't understand what the point of it is. There's really no depth or shadowing to the paint, it's mostly just solids. No variation to speak of, but at the same time, it comes out looking pretty cool. And even depending on how you just adjust this, you can kind of go over the fact that technically the blade's not really positioned correctly, but eh. Yeah, this has been a look at Baraka. Never one of my favorite Mortal Kombat characters, but as far as the figures go, it's pretty cool. Until next time, folks, when I'll possibly be looking at either Scorpion or Johnny Cage from the 6-inch.